Nuseir Yassin, and he's with us here. Nuseir, how's the weather where you are?
It is amazing. Amazingly hot.
Yeah.
Nice to see you, Max.
Nice to see you too. You probably have the right clothes. Let me introduce you to our audience here today. Nuseir Yassin. We have 19 minutes more than you usually have to explain what you do. Nuseir, you might know him from his Facebook account and his other accounts, Nas Daily, where, among other things, he traveled the world and brought us 100 different videos, each of the length of 1 minute. That's why I'm saying we have 19 minutes more.
1,000, Max.
1,000.
10 times more.
Oh my God. You're putting shame on me. 1,000 videos. And he now has a stat, and you're probably going to correct me on this one too. You have a staggering amount of followers. I think 37 million across all platforms, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that I got that one right. And now he's the founder also and CEO of his own media company, Nas Daily. So amazing career. And I was asking myself, Nas, and we talked about this earlier, if we're actually connected in what we do. So would you say you're a journalist?
Oh, well, man, you went straight into it. I would say I'm a journalist in disguise.
What do you mean by that?
You know, it's not by choice, right? It just so happens to be that we live in a world where, like, if you're a content creator, if you can reach more than 10 people on the internet, you are expected to become a journalist. And you see it, right? Whenever there's a big tragedy or a big war happening, everybody now not only goes to DW, but they also go to all the content creators and say, it is your duty to report on this. So please tell my side of the story. And I get these messages 50,000 times a day.
But that's not what you do, right?
You know, it is what I do.
Okay.
A journalist amplifies voices. And I also amplify voices. Maybe it's in a different format, maybe it's in a different way, maybe it's a different agenda, but we're all in the business of amplifying voices.
So I want to know from you, Nuseir, how do I get your energy, your digital competence and put it into traditional media? Do I have to lose the tie? What do I do to get 37 million followers just like you?
So actually, we celebrated 40 million yesterday. So we're at 3 million more, but it's fine. No one's counting.
40 million. See, I was wrong. I knew it.
The first thing you got to do, man, you guys got to ditch the $1 million studio. Because the minute you see a $1 million studio in Berlin, you realize that this is an institution. Max, you are massively interesting, but you could also be massively more interesting when you're in your home being yourself. And I think that's what people are attracted to. You know, the way I'm talking to you now is the way I talk in the videos. People just want to feel like I have a direct connection to this person.
Authenticity.
There's no producer, there's no cameraman, there's no camera woman. There's just the presenter.
But it doesn't look as good.
Well, you know, most people watch these things not on TV or cinema, they watch it on this. On a train when it's so noisy outside. So it doesn't really matter the quality of the content. All that matters is what you say.
Okay, so I lose the tie, right? That's what you said. That's what I do.
You're doing it.
I'm trying. I lose the tie, and then I use this instead of the big camera, right? But do I remain unbiased? Do I still try to be unbiased as a journalist?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good question. You know, this is a question you need to ask the creators of social media, because they've built social media in a way where bias gets you more success. The more unbiased you are, the more boring it gets for the social media algorithms. So you gotta have, Max, I'm sure you have very strong opinions on how the world should be structured. I have very strong opinion on how the world should be structured.
How should the world be structured? I think your opinions on that might even be stronger than mine. How should the world be structured?
The opposite of how it is right now.
Okay.
You know, it's like, you know, we live in a world at the end of the day whereby if you're white and you live in Connecticut, most likely your opinion matters than if you're brown and live in India. And we live in a world whereby if you're Jewish, you still get trouble. You still get, people tell you you shouldn't exist. We live in a world whereby you still don't have your own state if you're Palestinian. We live in a ridiculous world. So yeah, so my job, I mean, look, we're all trying to build the world the way we want it to be, the world we want to live in. And so I want to live in a world where I matter just as much as Max.
Well, I think you achieved that. I think you already achieved that, to tell you the truth, if I look at your numbers. But you mentioned the Israel-Palestinian conflict, and that's something we had a lot of headache with as a media organization, because it seems like everything you do, it's wrong, right? And
Yes.
you're a Palestinian, and so what did you think? What did you think about the role of traditional media in the reigniting of that conflict in the past weeks?
So here is the problem. I'm very unlucky because I was born as a Palestinian inside of Israel. It's like an automatic loss because Israelis don't trust you. You'll never become prime minister because you're Palestinian. And the Palestinians don't trust you because you're an Israeli citizen.
So you're in between two chairs.
You're in between a rock and a hard place, essentially. I think the recent events that happened were incredibly simplistic. And in a way where it's like, I think social media just amplifies anger or amplifies, as simple as it gets, it's amplified. So we live in a world whereby Palestine wins only if Israel disappears, or Israel wins only if Palestinians disappear. And that is the wrong mentality. So I think it's my job and your job to tell people that Israel's going nowhere and Palestine needs to be its own state. And that's unpopular in today's world.
So but you have an agenda in all this, right? You're not unbiased. In that conflict, what's your agenda?
My agenda is for a peaceful two-state solution where, for God's sake, we can move and reach a solution after 75 years of death. And that's my agenda.
And if you have, as a traditional journalist, if you had that agenda, right? If you were biased, although this is obviously a bias that sounds like makes a lot of sense, yeah, but still, it's a bias. So does that make us non-journalists?
No, look at the other journalists outside the world. I think because I have so much respect for Germans because you're all so like by the book. But look at Al Jazeera. It is the epitome of propaganda. It is the epitome of what it means to be a biased journalist, in which facts don't matter, but opinion does. And yet Al Jazeera is ridiculously huge. So if Al Jazeera is doing it, someone should build the anti-Al Jazeera, because Al Jazeera, if left to its own devices, can lead to a very dangerous world.
But that's not going to work. I'm sorry. If you have one biased medium against another biased medium and people just watch one of those mediums, as we've seen in the United States, for example, shouldn't there be an obligation for anyone who has a larger audience to try to find a certain balance within what they're doing?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Max. The way I think about it is this. We live in a world where information is free. If you want non-biased opinions, you're a Google search away. But we live in a world where opinion is hard to come by. Because at some point, Max, I'm not necessarily interested in you telling me that 5 people died in a terrorist attack. I am interested in you telling me 5 people died because of this that led to this, and this is how we should stop it.
So context.
I want the journalist to help me understand.
So you need context, but you still need the basic information. I mean, you told me that before when we talked. You said, you can't do your job without people like us giving the audiences the basic information, and then you can fly in 100%. And give the context.
100%. I think the role of DW, AP, Reuters is important, very important. Without them, I wouldn't exist. I think that's layer number 1. That's the basic layer of like the internet. Then you need the opinions and the thought leaders to help us make sense of all this information. Because at the end of the day, we live in a complicated world.
But can I be both? Can I be the guy giving you the basic information, the balanced information, and still giving you the context or even my opinion?
So you could do that if this is 1995. You could do that if this is 2005.
Thank you. I understand the hint. Yeah, go on.
I mean, I change my social media strategy every 2 months, for God's sake. This is like This is a struggle. I'm dying here. We're all dying, right? So I think at some point, big organizations, media organizations, like I want you guys to give me your opinion because I trust your opinion. Because I think you have built a successful society, and I would like that successful society to translate to freaking Egypt and to Jordan.
You're talking
and to
about
Israel and
Germany here,
Palestine.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where do our so where do our two worlds connect?
That's a good question.
I can
We
give you a little
connect-
time.
I think we connect in our desire to make the world better. I think we differ on which road we should take to make the world and the population better and more informed.
Do you think the way we traditional journalists, although I must say, we're changing as well, but at a slower pace than you, who just flies into Facebook and gets 37 million followers. But do you think we have a chance of surviving the way we do things?
So, Max, I told you this privately, and I have to tell it to you publicly.
Go.
Somebody is eating your lunch, and that person eating your lunch is not doing a good job with it. Somebody, like, there's finite attention that you can get from, let's say, the German population or the world population. And, organizations like Nas Daily is taking some of your attention away from DW to Nas Daily. But Al Jazeera is also taking it away from you to Al Jazeera. The question is, are you comfortable with some schmuck like me stealing your lunch away? I hope you are, but
I'm not. Give it back. How can I take it back?
Well, how many people are watching this?
Oh, I hope, millions and millions. All your followers, obviously.
Well, that's the thing. If you want your lunch back, I think you gotta cook your own lunch. And I think you gotta start with. I don't want to come off as like arrogant in this regard. Really, that's not my intention.
No worries.
I really think you are our only hope for a better future. And so, but you getting 5,000 views or 5 million views is not enough in today's world. We need to find a way where DW gets 500 million views every day.
Okay, what's that way?
So I think that way is not giving me information is not enough anymore. I think you need to give me an opinion. You have to change some of the narrative, and you have to choose a narrative, which, by the way, your government has chosen and your population has chosen, and run with it. Okay, so you're running with a narrative. Then social media algorithms will like you a little bit better. Third, you gotta develop 500 more people like Max. People love the individual. They don't love the institution. I fall in love with Anderson Cooper. I don't care about CNN.
Okay.
So you need to build, so people love Nas Daily because they saw me in it. They're attracted to an individual and they trust them with that information. So build 500 Maxes, lose the tie, and get on social media.
So it's the personalization of news, but you got to understand, Nas, that for people like me who learned, from the beginning that you have to take yourself out of the picture and try to be balanced and just give the information so people can make educated decisions and decide for themselves, it's against my instinct. And I think that instinct is right. What do you say about that?
I mean, you're a lot more successful than I am, so your instinct is working, and it's incredible. I mean, I'm not fully opposed to that. You're right, but at the end of the day, the future belongs to the individual. It doesn't belong to the institution. We live in a world where in the past, the bank had power. Now, in the future, a cryptocurrency miner has power. So journalism in the past, take yourself out of it, but journalism of the future, put yourself back into it. It's not my opinion, it's where I think the world is heading.
But we're making ourselves slaves to algorithms and also to, as you said earlier, the more hateful you are, the more successful you might be, or the more kittens you show, the more successful you might be. All of that is not journalism. And without journalism, journalism is one of the pillars of democracy. So are we talking about not only traditional journalism being in danger, but democracy? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes. So you're absolutely right. So this is the dark side of my world. I have developed creators and I have seen creators who have abused social media. So in a sense that, okay, if I become a little bit of a populist, if I become a little bit of like, show you a little bit of like crazy kittens or something gory, I will get more views. So I think this is a temporary problem. The solution to that is you, me, and Reuters and AP going to social media platforms and telling them you need to develop a moral compass in your algorithms, whereby if you show naked people, you limit distribution. If you show hateful content, you limit distribution. Distribution is not a right, it's a privilege. And some people deserve to get that privilege out of them. So I think the real power lies not with you and me, Max. It lies with the developers of Twitter algorithms, Facebook, YouTube, you know, and once they build the guidelines for social media algorithms, you and I can thrive.
Nuseir, you have a message of hope, I would say. That's what I'm taking away, a message of peace, of everybody just get along and love each other instead of hating each other.
Popular, by the way.
Huh?
Max,
Yeah, that's what I was going to
realize
ask. Do you get a lot of
Yeah.
pushback on that?
So I was reading this Wikipedia page of Anwar Sadat yesterday. The guy who was assassinated, the Egyptian president who was assassinated for making peace with Israel. And that got me thinking, waging a war and killing others is more safe than waging peace because you could die if you wage peace. Think about that. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, but you personally, you get a lot of pushback?
Oh, I get a lot of pushback. How many times have you seen a Palestinian Israeli say we need two states for two people to live next to each other and Jews are not bad people? You know, like almost never you get this narrative because the narrative in the Middle East is dominated by Al Jazeera and state-sponsored propaganda machines. How do we run away from these state-sponsored propaganda machines? It's simple. Empower the individual, like Nas Daily, to become a message of hope that there is an alternative to hating the Jews.
And what's your plan for the next, what's your next step? I imagine you're not very close to retirement, so you must have some plans.
So this is how much life I have left.
37%. That's not a whole lot. You got to recharge.
No. This is how much has passed. This is how much is left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My next plan is very simple, Max. Flood the internet with content. That's it. So build a $1 billion organization to create 1 million pieces of content to flood the internet with an alternative message of hope and tolerance, because that is in short supply on the internet, and push on DW to become more like Nas Daily and push on social media to develop a moral compass and its algorithms. That is our plan. And we're raising funds and I'm going all in on creating Nas Daily as the organization to achieve that mission.
And we will push for you to become more like us. And we'll check back in as soon as you're at 47% of your life. Thank you very much for being with us today, Nuseir Yassin. Great talking to you. Always great.